This is the Autel Maxicharger AC Lite Home 40 amp EV charger, and I've been living with this for the past few weeks. Let me show you its features. Well, 2 years back, I reviewed the Autel Maxicharger AC Wallbox Home 40A, and Autel was just entering the EV charging market. However, since then, Autel's added to their range, and from what I can tell, this original wallbox is now called the Maxicharger AC Elite Home. The name's still a mouthful, but at least it's more elite, I guess. Below the Elite is this newer entry, the AC Lite Home. And this particular version comes with the NEMA 1450 plug and is rated up to 40 amps. There's also a hardwire version rated up to 50 amps, but still, this 40 amp version will pump out 9.6 kilowatts of power. And from that, you can expect about 19 to 38 miles of range going into your EV every hour. This thing is a fully fledged smart charger, and it features just about every technology you could imagine. There's Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, RS485, Ethernet, and then it has this RFID reader that can lock and unlock the charger with a card. Autel sent me this unit to review, but as I always do, I try not to let that influence my review. And honestly, as I said, for the other charger, I really like this thing. The AC Lite arrived in a very nice box, and everything was encased in a super nice black foam. There's the charger, which has the J1772 charging cord and the NEMA 1450 input power cord attached to it. The J1772 handle or plug is nicely bubble wrapped and thus really well protected. Otherwise, the hardware is quite sparse. There's 2 lag screws and 2 security Torx screws for mounting the charger and opening it up. It also comes with 2 drywall anchors and a knockout plug if the unit's going to be hardwired through the rear, in which case the input cable knockout into the case needs to be plugged. The final bit of hardware is the mounting bracket for mounting the charger. And there's also a quick start guide and a small green card and a packing list. And that's it. The AC Lite installs in the same way as the previous Maxicharger I reviewed, and that makes it pretty much the easiest home charger to install. First, you secure the mounting plate to the wall with 2 screws. If this was going into drywall, you'd use the included drywall anchors. As you do this, you want to make sure you mount the charger in a location where the 31.5-inch NEMA 1450 input cable can easily plug into your NEMA 1450 outlet. I will note that this long input cable is super nice, and it's about twice as long as what you get on a typical charger input cable to a NEMA 1450 outlet. It's also a minor thing, but the 90-degree plug is rotated so that it can be directly plugged into the NEMA 1450 outlet from above. And other chargers have this plug inverted, and then the cable needs to loop to reach the outlet. I think most installations will have the charger above the outlet, so Autel's configuration makes a lot of sense. The 2 screws on the back of the charger slip into the holes and slots on the bracket. And then all that's left to do is to secure the bottom of the charger using the single security Torx screw. Before we plug in and get going, we should consider one final setup task. One of the major functions of an EV charger is to let the vehicle know what the maximum charge current is that it can safely draw. The charger does this by varying the duty cycle on a 1 kilohertz square wave. The greater the percentage of the signal that's at the high state, the higher the current that can be delivered to the car. The exact relationship between duty cycle and the current is dictated by the J1772 standard, which is universally adopted by all EVs, at least in North America. It's pretty easy to determine what the maximum safe current should be for your charger. Simply take the circuit breaker for the circuit that the charger is installed on and multiply it by 80% or 0.8. This will give you the safe maximum current. Personally, I like chargers that have physical switches in them to set the maximum current that can be delivered. Having to adjust it in an app or something like that is really nice, but having it physically set makes sure that you don't just swipe something in the app and accidentally exceed the circuit's maximum safe limit. The AC Lite does feature a rotary dip switch inside that you can use to physically set the maximum current. And to access this dip switch, you first take the front faceplate off the charger. To do this, you remove the 2 small security Torx screws at the bottom of the unit, and lifting at the bottom, the faceplate can be snapped off the sides of the unit. And this reveals a weather cover beneath. And right above the plug holster is a small cover with 5 security Torx screws around that. These can be removed with the included Torx key. And once inside, you see the screw terminals for the power that are entering and leaving the charger. On the upper right-hand side of this little opening, you'll see there's a small white rotary dip switch. The default position on this switch is 4, and this corresponds to a maximum current of 40 amps. And so if you're installing this on a 1450 outlet or on a 50 amp circuit, you really shouldn't need to open up the unit and set this dip switch at all. You can rotate the switch counterclockwise the whole way to 1, and that's 16 amps. 2 is 24 amps, 3 is 32, 4 is 40 amps, and 5 is 48 amps. And then there's 6 at 50 amps. But really, this is a 40 amp charger. I don't think this thing goes above 4. This would be set for the larger amperage versions of this charger. Anyways, once the dip switch is set correctly, the unit can be closed back up and plugged in. I already had the Autel Charge app installed from the last time I reviewed a Maxicharger. You can see I already have my existing Maxicharger set up in here. To add the AC Lite, I first hit the drop down at the top and selected Add Other Chargers. This requested access to my camera to read the charger's QR identifier and link everything up. And I found the QR code on my setup guide and everything connected instantly. That was really in real time. I entered my name and phone number and we're ready to go once I verified the code sent to my phone. And from here, the AC Lite uses Bluetooth to communicate with the phone and walk through the Wi-Fi configuration process. You simply find your network, enter the password, and you let the thing do the rest. I really liked the setup process on my previous Maxicharger and gave it really high marks for that, and I'm sure that Autel has continued to refine that further because this thing is a breeze. Once the network's connected, the app walks you through setting up convenience features like setting the energy price. If you enable auto start, the RFID lock/unlock feature will be disabled, and charging simply starts whenever the Maxicharger is plugged into the car and it's ready to receive power. You can set scheduling here and also adjust the max charge current. Now note that the current here can only be adjusted down from the current setting that was set by the physical rotary dip switch. With everything set up in the AC Lite, it's ready to use. When you plug it in, the main interface indicates that the device is charging and begins monitoring the kilowatt hours of energy that have been used. I also received a notification that told me that charging had begun. We'll look further at the app in a little bit. When I review these EV chargers, I use them as my primary charger for at least 2 weeks before I even touch the review. And this gives me a good amount of time to test out all the features and, most importantly, just use the charger and see how well it fits into my EV driving life. And in the case of the AC Lite, my usage has been extremely boring. I plug it in, it charges, I get notifications when I expect them, it finishes charging when I expect it, and everything just worked, and I didn't experience any failed charges or any errors or any other strange abnormalities in all of my testing. Now, Autel hasn't just done a great job on the electronics and smart features, but they've really incorporated a lot of design features that make this thing particularly nice to use. First, looking at the AC Lite, the most obvious design element is this striking white finish, and it also comes in dark gray, but I must say I'm kind of partial to the white. The green accents here around the charger holster and the logos are a nice touch. And really, overall, the design is very similar to the other chargers in the Maxicharger range, but the AC Lite does not feature the fake screen up here above the indicator lights, and I like that. I think it's a better design overall. The indicator lights here show the status. It shows when the charger is connected to power, when it's connected to the internet, when it's charging, when the Bluetooth is connected, and over here is the RFID reader. The charger body measures in at 13 inches tall, 7 inches wide, and it's about 3 inches deep. The charging cable is just about 25 feet long, and it's 16.8 millimeters thick. Speaking of this cord, it's one of the first things I noticed about this charger. This thing is really nice. It's thin, it has a nice soft rubberized feel to it. It feels very flexible and it's very easy to coil. Now, I haven't used it in extreme cold, so I can't speak to how well it coils up in the cold, but I think it would match other really good chargers, like maybe even the ChargePoint Home Flex, which is really highly rated when it comes to cords. So I really like the cord. The J1772 connector is a really nice rubberized connector. It's just like my older Maxicharger or my wall box unit. This is also the same connector as what's on my EVCO charger I just reviewed. The only difference here is the EVCO had a metal latch, and I like that quite a bit better than this plastic latch here on the Autel. It's really my only gripe on this connector. The plastic latch works perfectly fine, just to be a tiny bit better. However, I wouldn't put a lot of weight in the connector overall because with the imminent transition to NACS or the North American Charge Standard, this connector probably isn't very long for this world anyways. Unlike many other chargers, the AC Lite does not come with a separate cable holster. It's really designed to have the cable coiled around the charger body, with the J1772 plug fitted into the holster here at the front. There's a really good lip all around the top of the unit to make sure that the cable stays on the charger and doesn't fall off. And in my experience, this works super well. I do tend to like integrated holsters like this because it gives you a really convenient place to put the connector when you're not using it. And this one looks really nice with this nice aluminum green ring around it. My main gripe with this holster is the way that it holds the connector straight out from the charger. And this isn't an issue if you have plenty of clearance in front of the unit, but it could be an issue if you don't have a lot of space there. As promised, I want to dig into the app a bit more. Below the main charging window is a small section showing historic energy consumption and costs for the current month. To really drill down into this data, you simply click the small arrow to the right. Not only is more information for the month displayed, such as the estimated distance traveled by your car and the total charge time, the kilograms of CO2 saved, and the number of charge sessions, but if you scroll down, you can see short summaries of each session. And clicking on a session will give you even more information. I was really shocked to see the charging curve graphs for each session, where you can display either the instantaneous power, current, or voltage throughout the entire session. And frankly, this level of detail is really overkill, but if you're somebody who likes diving into details, this is an amazing feature. Back on the main page, similar information is available for the current session if you click the green button below the charger icon. If you click the little gear icon at the upper right of the main charging screen, tons of other information and settings for the charger pop up. I won't go through all the settings, but you can adjust all the charger settings here and do things like scheduled charging if that works best for you. And towards the bottom are other settings, such as linking the charger with Siri or Alexa. Autel also has an interesting setting that allows you to share your charger with others. And from what I can tell, this enables you to set up your private charger as a public charger and you sell charging to other people. It does look like this may require an additional service fee from June of 2024 on, but it's a pretty innovative feature to add. If you do share charges, you'll want to enable the RFID service on the charger. And Autel sells RFID cards like this, which can be linked to your account and used to lock and unlock chargers. Once I link my card and set the charger to RFID mode, it will not start charging on a plug-in unless I tap the RFID reader here. Like that. I was curious, so I decided to open this thing up and see what was inside. This is the power supply board of the Autel. You can see here is your main contactor or relay. This is what is turning the power on and off to the vehicle. And it looks like this is a 50 amp relay if it's in single mode, and I believe it's operating in parallel mode, both channels. So it says it's 65 amps, so that's over the rated current of the charger comfortably, so that's good. Here you have the ground fault circuit interruption coil, and this is the power monitoring coil. The other big components here, so you have a power supply here. This does your AC-DC conversion, gives you 12 volt DC to run everything. And then there's some other power converters and things like that. But it looks like the control logic here for the charging is actually on this board. And I believe these microcontrollers here are controlling the distribution of power to the vehicle. They're listening to the control pilot signal coming in here from the vehicle or going to the vehicle and watching the voltage drops at the car end to tell the contactor, okay, it's asking for a charge, go ahead and close. So it looks like, yeah, some chargers, they have the control logic on a separate board. It looks like the control logic is actually right here in this corner on the board. Overall, it looks quite nice. It's a nice looking board. It has screw terminals here. So on the left side, we have the inputs from the wall, if you're hardwired, or from the plug, if you're using the NEMA version I have here. And then on the left, these are the terminals out to the vehicle. Like I said, you have the control pilot here on a separate connector. I also like to look at the bottom of the board because it typically shows you how the power is getting through the board from the connections to the relay and then to the vehicle. This is important because these boards can be made at different thicknesses of copper, which means you need different widths of their traces in the board to handle the current. Some use bus bars, some have other ways of dealing with the current in the board. This guy's actually running it in the board. So this tells me that this is a little bit fancier board with thicker copper traces inside of it. You can see the traces under the surface here. They're pretty wide, going to and from the relay and to the different connection points down here, the screw terminals. But overall, you know, I believe the board itself must have thicker copper so that it can handle that additional current through the board itself. That means this is a little bit more expensive board, a little bit nicer board. It's not a safety thing necessarily what way is done here. Different ways can handle the power, but this is how Autel is doing it. One thing Autel does here that's pretty unique is there's actually a heatsink underneath the power supply board. And this heatsink takes heat from the power supply board, transfers it to the outside of the case. They do have a plastic cover here that prevents arcing between the heatsink and the power supply board. And if we take that off, you can see this is the aluminum heatsink, which transfers heat from the inside of the case to the outside of the case. Huge, big surface area here to absorb a lot of heat off of the electronics. Pretty cool idea on the part of Autel. It makes it a little more complicated. I'm sure a little bit more expensive to build these things. You'll see this board here on the top. This has a huge processor of some sort here, and you can see that goes the whole way through the board. There's also an ESP32 that has a Wi-Fi chip on it. That may be what's doing the communication to your Wi-Fi network. There's a USB-C port here for comms into the unit, probably for something internal that Autel does, and then a battery just to maintain some settings on the event of power off. And you see that this is connected to a LED board. The LED board is what lights up all the lights on the front of the unit, and then there's a big coil over here on the right-hand side, an antenna. I believe that's the RFID reader right here. Overall, pretty standard, like I said, very well built. I like it. That's what's going on inside this thing. Being a thermal engineer, I like to test the high temperature performance of these chargers. When you push high current through a device like this, any resistance in the device will heat up the components, and if this heat gets too high, well, bad things happen. If the temperature of the air in and around the charger increases, the temperatures increase in proportion to that increase in air temperature. And what that does is it really applies in hot, sunny places like Arizona or Southern California, where the charger can be baked by both hot air temperatures and then direct sunlight hitting it. To test the thermal performance of the charger, I created this hot box that can maintain the air temperature at temperatures between 115 and 140 Fahrenheit. The AC Lite's rated to about 131 Fahrenheit, so you can see we're really pushing up against its limit. I'm not going quite as hard as I could because my Bolt only charges at 32 amps, not 40, so we're not pushing this as far as we could, but it's what I can do. After an hour of charging, I shot the charger with my IR camera to see what the board temperatures looked like, and I got a peak board temperature of about 90 Celsius or 195 Fahrenheit. I let it charge for another hour and measured a slightly lower temperature, about 83 Celsius or 181 Fahrenheit. I think this decrease was due to the change in the air temperature of the box, and I really need to get better temperature control over that temperature so it maintains temperature consistently. Now, these peak temperatures were measured on some resistors on the main power board, so I don't think they're particularly concerning as they're very localized to those components. And I think that resistors can probably operate just fine at those temperatures, while some other components could have issues at those temperatures. The other components do get warm, but it's really nothing out of the ordinary for what I typically see in a charger like this. More importantly, the charger did not thermally throttle or reduce the charge during the test. I got the full 32 amps for all 2 hours. On the safety side, the AC Lite is CSA listed, which means it's certified to Canadian standards. CSA listing is an approved product testing certification in the US as well. It's similar to Underwriters Laboratory mark. Always look for an approved safety certification on an EV charger. You don't really want to mess around with an unsafe device because this thing is pumping so much power through it. I always look for either a UL ETL, which is the Intertech Testing Laboratory, or CSA listing mark. Well, how about weather sealing? Can you use this outside? Yes. The unit is NEMA 4X or IP66 rated, and this means it can be safely used outdoors and is protected against strong jets of water. Still seems to work. Passes the weather sealing test. My final safety test is the charger's ground fault circuit interruption protection, or GFCI protection. GFCI protects the user against shocks and other dangerous current leaks, and this is especially important when you're using the charger in a wet location, like say, charging in the rain. This little device should trip the GFCI. So we'll plug it in, signal a charge. It's charging. and then trip the GFCI. Yep, we got the fault condition. Works really well. The AZ Lite actually features a GFCI test you can do in the app, and that's a pretty cool feature. If you navigate to the settings menu, toward the bottom, you'll find the RCD test section. Hit the test button, and the charger should throw a ground fault error. It has to be charging to do this. And it does. As of March 2024, the Autel Maxicharger AC Home Lite 40A sells for $399 on the Autel site, and you can currently get it for $399 on Amazon. That's a crazy good deal. You're getting a really well-made 40 amp charger with excellent smart features and app, and it punches well above its price and really competes against much more expensive chargers such as the ChargePoint Home Flex or things from Wallbox or even Tesla units. The only concern for this charger in 2024 is the lack of a NACS or Tesla plug option. Next year, in 2025, virtually all new EVs will come with the NACS plug native on the vehicle. You can charge NACS vehicles from the J1772 plug with a small adapter, but this might get annoying. Still, if you have a J1772 vehicle or you plan on buying one and keeping it for a long time, this charger should be on your short list of chargers to look at. If you are interested in purchasing the AC Lite, you can find a link to Amazon in the description of this video. Now, I do have a few more chargers up here on the wall to review, and that content will be coming to you soon. So feel free to subscribe and check back for that. And I will see you guys in the next one. Passes the weather sealing test. Real test is, do I trust this thing to plug my car in tonight?